which is now. What is happening, everyone? Welcome to NBA Live Before Lock and the Masters going on. We had afternoon baseball, and now finishing it off with an NBA slate, which, listen, Matt, I know a lot of people have soured on NBA at this point in the season. I'm having a great time, though. I wish the contests were bigger, but I'm winning GPPs left and right here. I've won the $4 in back-to-back days. It's kind of shit payouts because the contests are so small, but hey, it's better than nothing. I'm happy to win some tournaments. And today, going to vie for a third consecutive win of the $4 contest. So do us favors. You guys are watching here. Like the video. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. If you are a Stokastic sub and have any questions for us over the course of the show, hit me up in the Discord channel. I'm on the lookout for any questions that you guys have. Matt, what's happening with you?
Nothing. That is damn impressive. 2 days in a row with the $4. Hopefully we can make it 3 here. Yeah, NBA is certainly a grind at this point of the season, but if you're willing to just grind it out, then you can get paid off. As you mentioned, wish the contest had bigger sizing, but at the end of the day, maybe the reason that you took down the $4 2 days in a row is partly because of that. So it's got its benefits.
Don't get me wrong. It is much easier to win when there are 700 people in it than if there's 20,000 people in it. But it doesn't mean I can't spin the narrative to however I want it to be. And I could say, like, boy, if these were full-size contests, I would have made tens of thousands of dollars instead. Listen, whatever it takes for us to either feel better or worse about ourselves, I'm up for it.
Yeah, totally. I get that. I mean, the justification makes a lot of sense. And yeah, I was taken aback when I look at the contest. But again, it's playing NBA DFS right now is not for the faint of heart. Only a few games left in the regular season, so shenanigans potentially all over.
Here's what we've got. We've got tonight's slate. We've got Friday's slate, which is tomorrow. Nothing on Saturday because there's no games. And then if you think these slates are the faint of heart, oh boy, do we have something in store for you guys on Sunday? Because the Sunday slate, notoriously the biggest shit show that exists in all of DFS. There is certainly an edge to be mined out. You got to put some homework in. So Sunday, that's this slate where everybody plays. You get almost entirely backups. You get a bunch of guys who you're going to have guys who score 50 fantasy points but aren't even in the player pool. That's what happens on that Sunday slate. So only 3 regular season slates left. We got some play-in slates next week, and then the playoff start, which I'm really excited about. And there is some precedent to this, but my gut feelings, I think we're going to see pretty big contests once the playoffs start. We've seen in the past that contests get a little bit smaller at the end of the NBA season, not quite this small usually, and usually they do bounce back a little bit after the NCAA tournament either ends or after at least the first couple of rounds. But I think we're going to see a really, really big contest selection for, I think next Saturday is going to be the first playoff slate. And then also for Monday night, I think will also be pretty substantial. So I'm looking forward to that as well. But as far as this slate goes, Matt, any kind of overarching thoughts or anything like that you have before we start to get into some of the details of it?
Yeah, well, we kind of mentioned it a little bit before the show about Giannis, and we both expect him not to play. So that's going to certainly change the outlook of the slate whenever that's confirmed. Other than that, just kind of typical late season NBA, April NBA. You got to choose between the value. There's a lot of it.
Yeah, and here's what we've got for injuries right now, because all the games being included on the slate, obviously the biggest piece of news here, we have Giannis officially listed as questionable. He was downgraded earlier in the day because he's dealing with an illness. He's the only super notable player who's on the injury report. We've also got Isaiah Stewart is questionable. And then, Matt, we do have some news about your Cleveland Cavaliers, who are apparently going to be limiting the minutes of Jared Allen for the remainder of the regular season. I always think it's funny when they frame it that way because it's like, all right, they're limiting his minutes, but for the rest of the regular season, like there's only a few games left. It's like I'm kind of curious what that actually means for his playing time.
Yeah, I kind of take it as he's not going to play a lot at all. I know that he's talked about this, Jared Allen himself, that it's like a personal goal that he wants to play in all 82 games. He played through a little bit of a hand injury. I think it's a little bit selfish, but clearly he's made it a priority. The Cavs have made it a priority for him that they're going to see this through, and he's going to play all 82 games. But I think he's just going to especially for the last three. Like, they're already clinched into the 1 seed. I can't imagine him playing any sort of regular. I mean, no way he plays big minutes here. I don't even think he plays regular minutes.
Yeah, I mean, they've already said he isn't going to play regular minutes. The bigger question to me is, what does this actually mean in terms of not regular minutes? Like, does it mean he plays 5 minutes? Does it mean he plays 12 minutes? Does it mean he plays 25 minutes? Like, all of these things are on the table. We saw this yesterday. Talked about it a good amount on the playback show, a little bit on this show as well. And then especially on the playback show, we talked a little bit more about Showdown. But Jalen Green last night, there was pretty strong indications that he wasn't going to be playing a full allotment of minutes. And that ended up leading to a really good edge in Showdown, where I had a ton of winning screenshots sent to me for people who just faded Jalen Green last night. He was anywhere from 60 to 70% owned in most of the large field Showdown contests. And somebody had sent me a screenshot where in a higher stakes GPP for Showdown, they were the only person who didn't play Jalen Green. Every other person ended up playing him. So it was crazy because we were speculating on the show that there wasn't going to be very minutes for Jalen Green. Udoka literally confirmed it before the game started, and people still play. Like, I can't remember a time where people didn't react to news in a way like they did last night.
Yeah, that's wild. I'll say this, as far as the minutes you mentioned, I don't know if it's going to be 5 or 12, but I'd put a lot of money that it's under 25. So, like, I don't think we're getting anywhere close to regular minutes. I'd put my money on under 20 personally.
Yeah, I don't know exactly what the number is going to be either. Here's what I feel good about, though. It's a number I don't want to play him in DFS. Like, whatever the mark ends up being. And then also, you look at the injury report for the Cavs, and it so closely mirrors the situation with Houston last night. Max Strus is out, Evan Mobley's out, Darius Garland's out, Donovan Mitchell's out. The only reason they're playing Jared Allen is the point you said before, so that he could get all 82 games played. It's something that matters to him. By the way, you are muted in playback, so just, goofy stuff over there. So just leave and go back. Matt's not actually muted. It's just sometimes things are weird being connected there. So I'll talk a little bit while you get that sorted out. But I mean, you just look at like what are the intentions of Cleveland for this game. And to me, just Jared Allen at most is playing 20-ish minutes. And most likely it's probably been less than that. I would be surprised if he plays the second half at all. I think he's only going to play minutes in the first half.
Yeah, Sam, I should be good on playback now. I'd be surprised if he plays a second rotation. Honestly, all their guys are out. He would be out here if it weren't for him wanting to play all 82 games. So, like, he's going to get his credit for playing in this game if he starts and plays however long. I just cannot see them. I can't even see them bringing him back in the game, personally.
All right, so let me check. Are there prop lines up for this? So they're Jared Allen props. There are not. Makes sense. One thing that's been really annoying about this part of the year for me, Matt, is generally I think this is one of the best times to bet on the NBA and find some value. And books are just not posting prop lines in some of these scenarios. Jalen Green actually had prop lines up, and they just gave him his normal prop lines last night, which was insane. So, like, that was a pretty good situation. I would love to take some Jared Allen unders, but unfortunately, nothing up for him. Let's also start to look at the Giannis situation, because you and I both kind of on the same page here. I do not think Giannis is going to end up playing. Now, a couple of reasons why I don't think Giannis plays, and I'm not saying this with like 100% certainty, but I'm going to build my lineups as if Giannis is not going to be in. So Milwaukee plays tomorrow, and the game tomorrow is actually potentially really meaningful. It isn't for sure going to be meaningful, but in a scenario where Detroit wins today, Milwaukee is playing Detroit tomorrow, and there is a scenario here where Milwaukee can Milwaukee can fall behind the Detroit Pistons in the standings. But there are still some things that need to happen in order for that to occur. But considering that they're playing tomorrow, as long as Detroit is able to win today, like tomorrow, that's such an important game for the Bucks. They're already playing against a really crappy Pelicans team that's really shorthanded today. They're 15.5-point favorites. My intuition here, Giannis sits. They make sure that he's fully healthy to go tomorrow. They don't have to play him in a back-to-back. So with that said, I do think that there are some considerations that have to be made there. You seem to be on the same page as me based on our pre-show conversation where you said at the top. What to you is the most likely scenario with Giannis? And put like a percentage on it. Like, are you 50% sure, as in a total coin flip? Are you 75% sure he sits? If I'm going to give you a number, what are you going to put on it?
So I think my most likely scenario is exactly how you laid it out. He sits tonight, plays tomorrow. I'm not like overly confident in that because I think that if he's like good to go, totally he'll play both games. But I'm more with you than against you that like there's absolutely no reason to force him tonight in this spot. So I'm going to say, I'm going to say like 65% the scenario you laid out.
By the way, Brandon McNair, not to be just to get the scenarios correct here. If they win today, the game still matters tomorrow. It depends what happens with Detroit, though. But Milwaukee winning today does not clinch them the 5 seed. That's where the 5 seed. So tomorrow's game much more important than today's game. So it is not true that if they win today, they clinch the seed. That's why, to me, it makes, because I think they win this game whether Giannis plays or sits anyway. So that's why I think it makes most sense. If I was coaching the team or I'm in charge of the decisions, what I would be doing in this scenario is I would be sitting Giannis. That's not always the best way to go about these scenarios, just because, coaches and teams, they do really weird things that are kind of hard to make sense of sometimes. Like yesterday, Josh and I spent 10 minutes at the top of the show figuring out why the hell they rule everybody out but Jaylen Brown. And then Jaylen Brown got ruled out right after we were done with the conversation. So I tend to think that Giannis sits. And once again, to reiterate, winning today does not mean they lock in the 5 seed. So maybe that rethinks your opinion right there.
Yeah, that would be my question about it, though. Like, what exactly is the ramification for tonight's game for Milwaukee?
Yeah, so the ramifications for tonight's game are still that if Detroit was to win the rest of their games and Milwaukee loses the rest of their games, then we're going to have Detroit leapfrog them in the standings. Now, keep in mind as well is that Detroit and Milwaukee play tomorrow. So what has to happen here is I think the magic number is 2. So Milwaukee, Detroit, there has to be some combination of Milwaukee or 3. I mean, there has to be some combination of 3 wins for Milwaukee plus 3 wins for Detroit for Milwaukee to seal the 5 seed in the final 3 games.
So wouldn't Milwaukee winning tonight make tomorrow's game irrelevant? I guess going back to that.
If Milwaukee wins today and Detroit wins, then Detroit could be in a scenario where they win tomorrow, and then there's only 1 game separating them in the standings. And then you get into a spot on Sunday where then the Sunday games could be really, really like do or die in terms of that seed right there. So what would happen for Detroit to pass Milwaukee? It's a magic number of 3. So any combination, 3 wins for the Bucks, plus 3 wins for Detroit. But since they play each other tomorrow, that could be a scenario where there's a game knocked out for both teams.
Yeah, when you first said it, I had thought you said it was a 3-game lead for Milwaukee, but it's only a 2-game lead to your point. So, yeah, I'm with you. Tonight's game would obviously be nice for Milwaukee to win, but tomorrow is the game Milwaukee needs to win. So I think that they should put and will probably put all their efforts towards tomorrow's game.
Yes, and the reason also, as somebody brought it up in the chat here, is that they also play each other on Sunday. So if Detroit wins, so if Detroit wins out, then they're going to end up leapfrogging Milwaukee. So the game today, like it could matter in the scenario where, if Milwaukee ends up winning and Detroit ends up losing. But what I think is most likely to happen, once again, I think Giannis sits, but don't know that for sure. And I am going to build my lineups as if Giannis is sitting, because that's what I think offers the biggest edge for the slate. And that's also something that's really important to me is that if I'm kind of on the fence, I want to play the side that gives me the most upside in tournaments, and that's assuming Giannis is going to be out.
Totally.
All right, so with that in mind, let's start answering some of your guys' questions and some of your super chats. And I see that we do have Chris Williams gifted out 5 YouTube memberships. Chris, as always, thank you very much for supporting the channel. We do very much appreciate it. That is a great help to us around here. And that is it for super chats. Let's see if we got anything in Discord. And we do. Boy, this is going to be a tricky one here because we've got Coach DFS wants to know who our favorite cash game options are for today. So this is where things could definitely change a little bit. I'm sorting by ownership here because he did ask us specifically for DraftKings. And some of these slates are very tricky to play for cash games. Now, I would not build a cash game lineup assuming Giannis is out because that's the inverse. We're looking for, in tournaments, I'm looking for a ceiling. In cash games, we're looking for a little bit more of a floor. And by the way, we'll talk a little bit more on what to do in the event that Giannis is out and what that means for my lineups as we go here. But first, coach's question. He wants to know who to play for DK cash games. Some of these guys who are projected for really high ownership, that's why I sorted by ownership here on the screen. Matkovich, Jerome, Elfrid Payton, Antonio Reeves, Karl Anthony Towns, especially because if we're assuming there's a pretty good chance Giannis sits, that makes it even more imperative to play cat in a cash game. But I know I just kind of read off the most popular options, but it's for good reason. Those are the guys I consider the must plays in cash.
Totally. I mean, I'm with you. It does look like this is a slate where there's some clear guys that you just have to play in cash games, and they're the guys you mentioned. Now, if we get Giannis news like soon, that might change things. But I'm with you to your point. Like in cash games, we want safety, and projecting Giannis out in that type of format is not safe. So totally with you.
Follow-up super chat from Chris Williams. He says, shout out and quick thinking. Last night's showdown. Happy me and yourself, Greg, got first in that contest. Yes, did come in first in some showdown contests just basically by not playing Jalen Green. That was kind of like all you had to do to win in showdown last night. If you didn't play Jalen Green, like you just pay up for the other guys and then you just rotated in cheap guys. You were just going to land on the optimal lineup. So anyway, yeah, shout out to Chris. Said one of the easiest edges with Green last night I've seen in a while with his 8 fantasy points. Absolutely. Absolutely, Chris. Happy to see that you took advantage of that situation and won a GPP last night. Absolutely love to see it. Let's talk a little bit more about the Giannis situation. And we've gone over that you and I both think there's a pretty good chance he doesn't end up playing. But now, what does that actually mean for other players on the Bucks and what we should expect from them? So who do you like from the Bucks with us right now leaning towards Giannis not being out there?
So we've read this book before with Milwaukee. We kind of know what to expect. We know Dame is out. Portis is still obviously suspended.
No, Portis is back.
Oh, Portis is back. Excuse me. How long has he been back for?
Yeah, so Portis played last game. I actually think that's one of the interesting parts of this. I had no clue what Portis's minutes were going to be his first game back, and he played 29 minutes. So I thought maybe he was going to be limited. Now, it wasn't an injury, so there was definitely an opportunity for him to play regular minutes. But I thought that just because it was such a long layoff, maybe his cardio wasn't all that great, that they might have him playing like 15 minutes his first game back. He went and played 29 minutes or 28 and a half. It was like right in between that mark. I tend to think if Giannis is out, we actually get a start in like full minutes from Bobby Portis. I looked for Bobby Portis props all day today, and books were just too much of pussies to post them, and it was very annoying to me.
Yeah, well, in that case, he's the clear just smash play if Giannis is out. I mean, silly me, foolish me for not knowing that. But again, I did not play NBA the last slate that they played, so that's why I did not know. But yeah, him being back does make it a little bit murkier for everyone else. I will say, at their price tags in this spot, I think Portis looks really, really good. You'll have Kevin Porter Jr. looking good. All the secondary pieces will start to look good too. Gary Trent, Kyle Kuzma, Brook Lopez. I think everyone on Milwaukee is going to look like a very, very good play. I'm not sure anyone except for maybe Portis, KPJ, Ryan Rollins are going to look like the top plays on the slate, but I think all those guys are going to be like top 20 guys overall.
And now here's the other part of this. If they're sitting Giannis, it's a big spread. We're kind of assuming that the thing this is kind of safe. Should we be concerned about the minutes for anybody else for Milwaukee?
I don't really think so. I'm not sure who else we would be worried about. The Portis point, I almost think it's like, I think it might be better for Portis. I think they're anxious to give him more minutes and get him out there, get him acclimated to more run because the playoffs are coming. No Dame. We don't know what's up with Dame, and they're going to need offense, and he's the guy that can provide it. So I don't really think, maybe like a Kuzma, Brook Lopez, sure, he's older. The other guys, though, like KPJ, Trent, Portis, I mentioned, I'm not really worried about it with those guys. I think, like I mentioned, the guy I would be most worried about is Brook Lopez, but I don't even love him with Portis back.
Yeah, and the other part about Lopez as well is, we've already seen a little bit of an uptick in his price because he's played a bigger role. Oh, there we go. Well, screw us. Giannis is in, so what does it even matter now? Got to redo. I was running sims. I'm sitting here trying to really fine tune everything for Giannis being out, and none of it matters. None of it matters. I've wasted a big portion of my day today trying to figure this scenario out. So that's the way NBA goes sometimes. Rerunning sims with everything being normal now.
Yeah, good thing for you and for us, for whoever was planning on Giannis being out. We know that now, but now as it stands, with how much value we still have, I mean, Giannis is a guy I think you got to really strongly consider in cash games.
Yeah. I assume now his projected ownership is going to end up going up as well. I do have some concerns that they limit his minutes a little bit, though. It might just happen naturally if they're up by a lot with the key game being played tomorrow. As I knock over my microphone, but I think that Giannis is obviously still a strong pay-up option. I don't know that I'd be going to him in cash games, though.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think he's a must in cash games, but I do think he's like on the short list of guys just because, yeah, there's some holes you can pick in him, certainly at that price tag with the blowout concerns, but we have so much value that looks good. The raw points just might matter.
All right. So let's go ahead and look at some projections. It looks like we got an update on the site. So I'm curious what changed, if anything, significantly. Did this move Giannis around? Let's see. No, not really. Things more or less the same here with Giannis. So let's address this now. Now that we know that he's in, how high of a priority is Giannis for you relative to the other payoff options?
It's tough because I'm with you. Like, I do think there are holes here. Like, they play tomorrow. This is an easily winnable game for them. I could see the blowout concerns hurting him. He's hella expensive at 12.7. Like, you're not getting any discount. But there are no other spend up options like in Giannis's range, where if Giannis plays a full game, he will be the highest scorer on this slate. And with so much 3K, 4K value, I think you might just have to play him. So I don't like love him on a normal slate. Like with Jokic, I'd probably rather play Jokic no matter what, but we don't have that here. I don't think you have to play him again because there are other guys. Towns, we've got like Trae Young, but especially with how much of the value is coming from the New Orleans side, I think if I were making one lineup here, I would just play Giannis personally.
All right. Yeah. So I'll say I'm going to rerun everything now because obviously everything I built is completely different than what it's about to be. And having 0% of Giannis is what I had before. That is definitely not going to be the case anymore. Let's see if there was any questions pertaining to this, which there are not. Although, do you want to circle back on Coach's question? Just say that this doesn't really impact what I view for cash games. Still kind of the same options. If you could fit Giannis into a cash game, cool. But I don't think he's a must-play in cash or anything like that. Enough talk about the Giannis situation in the Bucks. I've made myself look like an idiot enough already on that side. Who are your favorite value options on the slate? And in particular, I assume this is going to come from New Orleans. Who do you want to be attacking from the Pelicans? Well, actually, I'll just ask you one question at once here. Who are your top overall value options on the slate that you feel you can't get away from? Because there are a handful of them.
Yeah, there are, I would say, even more than a handful of good value plays on this slate. Number one for me is going to be Elf. I mean, that shouldn't come as a surprise for anyone who's looked at the tools, anyone who's watched my shows for however amount of long a time. I mean, I'm a huge Elf guy. 3,900 here with how shorthanded New Orleans is. Projects for 34 fantasy points. I can't get away from him here. The next guy is going to be Precious. I mean, another guy just way too cheap. I mean, not even too cheap, just crazy cheap. 3,300 projects for 29 plus fantasy points. The ownership is there, but it should be. And I don't really see a world where I'm playing one lineup and not playing Precious and Elf. And then the next guy, I don't feel as good about this because he's more expensive. And I think there potentially could be minute concerns with, him coming, back from injury recently. But Ty Jerome, like 4,700 is just way too cheap with all these guys out for Cleveland. We know he can 10x this price tag here pretty easily if he plays full run here. So I think those three guys, no surprise, they're the top three guys in the boom bust tool. The guys right after them also look good too here. So It's tough. I mean, there is a bunch of like 3 to 5K value that projects really, really well.
And talking about the Pelicans as a whole, let me filter by them here because this is a team that is sitting a bunch of guys. So for the Pelicans, who are only running a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8-man rotation today, we have almost the entire rotation projected at least fairly decently. We've got in here Elfrid Payton, who you just talked about. We got him for 34 fantasy points. We've got Matkovich for 35 fantasy points. We've got Reeves for 30 fantasy points. 28 for Jeremiah Robinson Earl, Keon Brooks for 27.5. We've got nearly 23 for Jamal Cain, 20.5 for Lester Quinones. We've got Kyler Kelly in for 18 fantasy points. And now of these guys, all of them with the exception of Cain, Quinones, and Kelly are projected for 24% ownership or higher. If we're looking at some of the lower owned Pelicans guys, which it could be the super low owned guys, maybe even one of the guys in the 20% range. Is there anybody you think is being overlooked from the Pelicans?
Yeah, I mean, I think the guy that really stands out for that question is going to be Lester Quinones. Again, he looks really good in the tools. He's not getting a lot of love. Projects for over 20 fantasy points. He's 3,100. It's just tough though because the roster spot is worth so much here. Like, yeah, he projects decent at 3,100. And if he gives you, 24 fantasy points, you're going to be happy. But there's so many good plays on this slate. Like, I understand why he's not getting love. So he stands out as far as the guy that's just falling through the cracks. But guys that I think project well and are going under-owned, I think Jeremiah Robinson Earl. I mean, he's going to be close to 30% owned, but he's got over a 35% chance of being optimal. He's 3,300. There's just so much good value. You can't fit it all. That's why I'm having trouble not just playing Giannis because, like, if you do like a 2 for 2 where you're saying like Towns and whoever it is versus Giannis and like the 3 or 4K guy, like even if you think Towns projects better dollar for dollar than Giannis, which I have no argument, like the 3 or 4K guy is just going to project better dollar for dollar than the 7K guy here. They might even project better just from a raw points perspective. So tricky slate in that regard from my perspective, at least.
Yeah. So another thing too is these guys, for the most part, shitty fantasy producers, with Elfrid Payton and Carlo Matkovich being the exception. So we've got our projections on screen here, and look at the fantasy points per minute rate, Matt. We've got Payton and Matkovich for over a fantasy point per minute. 0.83 for Reeves, 0.87 for Jeremiah Robinson Earl, 0.81 for Keon Brooks, 0.82 for Jamal Cain, 0.77 for Lester Quinones, 0.85 for Kyler Kelly. All these other guys are poor fantasy producers. And I'm looking at that and saying, yeah, like a lot of these guys are interchangeable. Why does Austin Reeves have to play? Antonio Reeves. Does Antonio Reeves have to play big minutes? Does Jeremiah Robinson Earl have to play big minutes? Could they give some of those minutes to Kyler Kelly, Jamal Cain, or Lester Quinones? So I like taking shots on these lower owned guys just because, you look at some of these slates and we make some of these assumptions, a lot of it's based in, like pretty good logic. But at the same time too, it's like if Keon Brooks plays 31 minutes instead of 34, and then Jamal Cain plays 31 instead of 28, if you look at our points per minute rates, all of a sudden you take 3 minutes from Keon Brooks and give 3 minutes to Jamal Cain. Jamal Cain's now projected for more fantasy points than Brooks at a cheaper price point.
Yeah, no, I think that's a very thought out and well-respected opinion. Like in terms of that, I think that just playing the lower owned guys makes sense because there is so much volatility. And I have no arguments with that because I don't really love any of the guys that are projecting, better than the other guys either. Because as you mentioned, none of them outside of like the 2 guys that are going to be in almost everyone's lineup, Elf and Carlo, they all are pretty shitty fantasy producers. I'll say this, just thinking about it and going back to the question you asked me, the one guy from New Orleans outside of Elf and I guess Matkovich that I think I would definitely want to play is Reeves, just because I think he's a guy that can get going offensively and they're going to need that with so many guys out. So I think his floor is low, but I think his ceiling is higher than a lot of these other cheap hells.
Yeah, so that's a spot that I think it makes the most sense to get a little bit different and play potentially guys that could end up picking up a little bit more minutes as guys like, Jamal Cain, Lester Quinones, Kyler Kelly, 1, 4, and 13% ownership. I think those are reasonable GPP targets. If you guys haven't done it yet, by the way, like the video, subscribe to the YouTube channel. And if you haven't yet, checked out our portfolio EV tools, go ahead and give those a go. 7-day free trial. I am really excited for the start of the NBA playoffs, Matt. We've got the data team gathering some of the results we had last year for the NBA playoffs because the tools performed really well, which it makes sense because this is a market-based algorithm and the market is going to definitely find the most success doing projections when you've got really knowable scenarios. And that's what happens in the playoffs because guys basically played the exact same minutes every single game. So I'm really looking forward to placing some bets with Portfolio EV for the playoffs. There's all different points and times in the NBA season where you find different value in different kind of ways. But Portfolio EV, that is going to be huge for me come the playoffs. And you guys could try it totally free for 7 days if you sign up using the link that we have down below in the YouTube description box. Let's make sure there aren't any outstanding questions here. And we have one from Bando. So let's answer Bando's question. He wants to know, who is our preferred play at small forward tonight? So Bando, one question. Is this a DraftKings or a FanDuel question? We could answer for both, but it kind of matters to, well, actually, I think it's going to be the same answer for me on both sites, but I'll kick this off to you first, Matt. Who's your favorite overall small forward option?
Tough. Bunch of good options as far as value goes that project. I'm going to go back to the guy I just said. Give me Antonio Reeves, 4K. Projects for about 30 fantasy points. Give me Reeves at small forward.
All right. So for me, the answer is pretty easily Antonio Reeves. The bigger question to me with Reeves, because it's pretty hard for him to not be the guy you get the most exposure to. It's more so, do we like him relative to what his ownership is? And to me, the answer is I'm neutral on him. I have him in half my lineups. It's about what the field is expected to do. So as far as Reeves goes, I think he's a great option, but it's not like I'm playing 80% of him and have some like massive stand on the field or anything like that. He's just the guy I overall get the most exposure to. But how about from this angle? Do you have a contrarian small forward that you like?
I don't know how contrarian this is, but I think it goes right back to what you just talked about, like the pivot off of Reeves onto either Keon Brooks or Jamal Cain. So I'll say one of those two guys.
All right. So if I'm looking at the small forward spot and I want to potentially be a little bit different, yeah, it's going to have to be what I said before. I'm just checking to make sure the positionalities of all these guys. Yeah. So Jamal Cain, we talked about his points per minute rate and how all these guys from New Orleans are pretty similar. Cain's also really cheap at $3,200. So if I'm going to be different, give me Jamal Cain at small forward. Over on the FanDuel side of things, it's different just because Reeves doesn't have small forward eligibility. So obviously he can't be the choice over there for that reason. And that is actually going to lead me to instead say, I guess Keon Brooks. That'll be the one who stands out the most for me over on FanDuel. How about you? Anybody else that stand out to you in FanDuel in a different way than DraftKings when considering that there is no small forward eligibility for Antonio Reeves over there?
Yeah, I think the one thing that does stand out a little bit there is Anthony Edwards has small forward eligibility. So Anthony Edwards at 9,300 with a bunch of weak small forward options. I think I'm just going to say Ant here. He's getting a ton of love over there also.
Yeah, I've got the ownership on screen right here for FanDuel, and you guys can see Anthony Edwards, 62% owned. And yeah, like he warrants a ton of consideration over on FanDuel, but also when I was running stuff through the Sims, I got underweight to the field on him, which it's always a little bit hard to know like how to answer that question for me sometimes where people like, who do you like at small forward? And it's like, well, Edwards shows up in a lot of lineups for me, but I'm also underweight to the field on him. So it's like if I was playing 150 lineups, I'd be rooting against him for that reason, just because I'd be underweight to him there. So Edwards definitely somebody who's going to show up in a lot of lineups, but is he going to show up in more than 2/3 of lineups? not for me, at least not in the lineups that I had built out here. So with that being the case, looking to go a little bit more contrarian, that was kind of where I ended up landing there. But yeah, that's how I feel about Anthony Edwards as an option on FanDuel. Really strong, just 62% ownership. That is a big mark. Who's your favorite pay up option on the slate outside of Giannis? Or maybe it isn't Giannis overall.
I think it has to be Towns at that point. Like, just because, I mean, it's either Towns or Trae Young. I'll say Towns because he projects a little bit better than Young and he's a little bit cheaper. I don't love it, but I mean, he's a fine play. I mean, he projects well enough, and there aren't really other good spend up options. So pretty limited options to answer that question on DK.
We got some super chats here. One is from RADM. He wants to know, what are the odds of Tibbs resting the starters tonight? Well, what do you mean by rest? The game starts in 25 minutes, and we know the injury situation. Are you asking, are these guys going to not play at all? Because that's not going to be the case. Are you asking, are they going to potentially play somewhat limited minutes? I don't really think so. So we do have Josh Hart, Mitchell Robinson, OG Anunoby have already been ruled out. So we know for sure that Josh Hart and OG Anunoby aren't playing. I think we're going to see relatively close to normal minutes for the Knicks core guys. I would be surprised if like Brunson and Cat play north of 40 minutes. I think they're going to play just about close to the normal allotment of minutes. But how do you see that situation, Matt?
I see it similarly to you. Like, I don't think they're going to play like massive minutes here, but I think that if there were any question about them playing, we would already know by now, considering guys have already been ruled out. So I don't really think they're trying to play mind games here.
Yeah. And that's we got the starting lineup for the Cavs. They are going with Ty Jerome, Sam Merrill, DeAndre Hunter, Dean Wade, and Jared Allen. There was a lot of different ways the Cavs could have gone with this starting lineup. There are, but sometimes we see them go with totally weird starting lineups, like when Hunter Tyson was starting earlier in the season. I think that was was he the one? Hunter Tyson? Jalen Tyson. Hunter Tyson's the one from the Nuggets. There was Jalen Tyson started games for the Cavaliers earlier on in the year. So you never know what that starting lineup could have ended up being, but they did end up going with Sam Merrill, Ty Jerome, DeAndre Hunter, Dean Wade, and Jared Allen. I want to check our projected starting lineups page just to see what we had before, to see if there's going to be an expected change. And yes, we had Isaac Okoro projected to start instead of Sam Merrill. We hit on the other four starters, but do expect a little bit of an uptick in projection for Sam Merrill and a little bit of a downtick in projected minutes for Isaac Okoro. What do you make of the starting lineup for the Cavs?
I mean, it's nothing that I wasn't really not expecting. Merrill already really looked good in the tools. He's a guy we didn't even mention, but 3,300, he's just another piece. Like, to get you off some of the New Orleans chalk, I imagine his ownership is going to rise. He's coming in with nice leverage right now, but man, he looks really good. Other than that, we talked about Ty Jerome. Nothing really out of the ordinary. Like, I'm happy it's not a Okoro because I didn't really want to play him anyways.
Yeah, and now we've got Sam Merrill starting. Sam Merrill, like you mentioned, pretty cheap. We got Sam Merrill at $3,300 over on DraftKings. Sam Merrill over on FanDuel is priced a little bit more expensive at $4,200. So DraftKings, I think it's pretty easy. He's going to be a guy that we get a decent amount of exposure to. What do you make of him on FanDuel, where not only is he $4,200, but he also doesn't have the benefit of the 3-point bonus over there?
So those are two negative detractors. He's more expensive and no 3-point bonus, but he does have small forward eligibility. So, like, this is where if you didn't want to spend up for Ant, I think he's the logical guy to go to. Like, unless you want to go to like a Jamal Cain or Keon Brooks. Yeah, I mean, I guess considering all of that, I find him less appealing there. He's more expensive. The 3-point bonus is massive for him. He just doesn't really do anything else. So I would have a harder time playing him over there, even with the forward eligibility. How about yourself?
So over on FanDuel, he'll still show up in some lineups, but he is a much higher priority on the DraftKings side of things. One thing that does benefit him on FanDuel is that the position small forward is just weaker overall, and we have to roster two of them. So that is something that's going to make it just that he lands in lineups, but there's still other higher priorities, like, Keon Brooks. He's definitely somebody who I prefer. Jamal Cain, pretty close, although Jamal Cain is cheaper, potentially will be a little bit lower owned than Sam Merrill. And then we still have Anthony Edwards. So I'll view him as probably comparable to Jamal Cain, Keon Brooks being ahead of them, and then Ant also being ahead. But yeah, Sam Merrill is definitely one of my 4 favorite small forwards over on FanDuel.
Yeah, makes sense.
The next super chat we have is from Olrat14. Olrat wants to know, can Mike Conley be in play to beat these value guys? So we don't have a very good projection on Mike Conley. We have Mike Conley in for 21.4 fantasy points. Also, keep in mind when it comes to a guy like Mike Conley, his playing time somewhat capped. Now, on a lot of slates, $3,600, 21.5 fantasy points. That's somebody who would land in a bunch of lineups. He's in play, but I'm not preferring Mike Conley over like cheap Pelicans guys. I'm not preferring him over Ty Jerome. He's definitely somebody to consider, but there's a reason also that he's not projected for all that much ownership. It's that upside. It's a little bit capped relative to other cheap guys that we have that could potentially be playing like 36 minutes.
Yeah, he actually looks better in the tools than I thought, but there's just no way I can get to him on a slate like this when we've got, a ton of young guys who are like getting their opportunity in the league, their one and only opportunity, as opposed to Conley, who is 800 years old, late season NBA. For me, that's not the type of pivot I'm trying to make right now.
Yeah, and if we go ahead and look at Cleveland, we've already got a projections update. So here's what we have for the Cleveland Cavaliers, guys. We have Ty Jerome leading the way, projected for 36 fantasy points. DeAndre Hunter in for 28 fantasy points. Sam Merrill now at 25.5. Jared Allen, we ended up projecting him for 17. So really conservative the projection for Jared Allen. Totally makes sense given the scenario we know. Craig Porter Jr., he's somebody who also is projecting okay, 18.92 fantasy points. I don't think he's the worst pivot play in the world either, Matt, getting to some Craig Porter Jr. If I want to be really contrarian, give me Craig Porter Jr. before somebody like Mike Conley, just because there's a scenario here where maybe Ty Jerome plays 24 minutes. And by the way, he might still be a good option in 24 minutes, but he might play 24. Craig Porter Jr. plays 24. And then all of a sudden, maybe Craig Porter Jr. looks like a really good leverage option. But only 1% ownership going to Craig Porter Jr. I like him as a contrarian guy to pivot to.
Totally with you there. Like, I would definitely play him over Conley. I would consider just playing him here to your points. Like I mentioned it when I talked about Jerome. Jerome looks like a smash play at 4,700 with all these guys out, but there is some minutes concern with me for him. Like he's not a guy they ever play huge minutes, and he's coming off an injury recently. So I think there's merit to go to Craig Porter Jr., who is a good fantasy producer in his own right. So I'm with you. I think he looks good as a contrarian option, like a really, really contrarian option that has a potential to, if he gets the minutes here, he can have a score that's needed on this slate. So I like that call.
We've got some starting lineups that just came in. So here's what we've got for you guys on that end. And this is going to be for some games that are locking in 17 minutes here. Pistons starters, Cade Cunningham, Tim Hardaway Jr., Asar Thompson, Tobias Harris, and then Duren as well. No real massive surprises there, but good to see that everybody's confirmed in just because Cade and Harris are both on the injury report. Knicks starting lineup, Brunson, McBride, Bridges, Achua, and Towns. Let's see what we had for our projected starting lineup for the Knicks to see if that is going to end up having to be updated. We had, all right, our projected starters for the Knicks, Brunson, McBride, Bridges, Achua, Towns. All right, look at that. We ended up going 5 for 5 there, so nothing is going to have to really change there. And you guys could see our notes here from the data team. And if you guys are ever looking for starting lineups, NBA injury news, go to our NBA starting lineups page. People always reference the green check marks over on FanDuel and DraftKings, or people will go to like RotoWire or something like that. It's bad information. It's not really updated. A lot of times you also get certain stuff like a starting lineup comes out and they just post the wrong starting lineup. Just go to our page. It's totally free. There's no reason to not check out just free information that's better than the free information you're currently getting. So you see from our data team, OG Anunoby, Josh Hart, and Mitchell Robinson are out. the only game this season, which OG and Hart are both out. The game went to overtime, and then Precious Achiuwa played 46 minutes. McBride played 42 minutes. And then also the Knicks are 2 games ahead of the Pacers for the 3 seed, but would need to lose all of their games and the Pacers to win all of their games to move in the standings. So as far as the Knicks go, we talked about what could end up happening with their minutes because of the super chat we got. And my assumption with the Knicks is that we're going to see close to full minutes, maybe some tempered expectations in terms of the Knicks not wanting to push Cats to like 40 or anything like that. But yeah, I think we're going to see close to normal minutes for the Knicks guys there. That was per the super chat we had from RADM before.
Close enough where I don't want to change anything at least. Go ahead. Sorry about that.
Yeah, I was just gonna read off the next super chat, which is from Darren Unger. He's asking us a 2v2 question for FanDuel, Ant and Cat, or Giannis and Bridges. Ant and Cat for me.
Same.
Then we've got a question from My Filler Arc. My Filler Arc wants to know Towns and Naz Reid. Okay, I see how it is. Towns and Naz Reid / Santi Aldama. So it could be either of those, or Onyeka Okongwu and Asar Thompson. All right. Of these guys, what am I doing with exposures? All right. Well, I don't have Naz Reid in lineups. I don't have Santi Aldama in lineups. I don't have Asar Thompson in lineups. And do I have... I have some of Okongwu. All right, so I dislike almost every single player that's in this combination. So it does make it a little bit tricky. I'm going to go with Cat and Naz Reid. I don't like Naz Reid or Aldama. I have a moderate amount of interest in Onyeka Okongwu. I don't have interest in Asar Thompson. And obviously I like Cat. He's by far the guy I like the most in all of this. So I'm going to go with Cat and Aldama.
I'm going to say Cat and Naz Reid, but basically the same premise as you. Like the only player in that whole grouping I actually want to play is Towns. So Towns and insert player here is the winner for me.
All right, let's see what we have for any other Discord questions, which we don't have any at the moment. So, Matt, you know what I think this is a good time for?
Yeah, let's do the nuke of the night.
I agree. All right, Matt, lead us off here. I've got some lineups updating, but I've got my guy pick that I'm going to go to, but I'll let you answer first. I've got 2 holster just in case you do happen to give out a guy that I'm planning on giving out as my answer here, but I want to hear from you. Who do you have for nuke of the night?
So I'm going to go with a guy we just talked about. I've been thinking about this all show, and he was in consideration for me. And now that we talked about him, I just feel better about it. I am concerned about Ty Jerome's minutes here. The Cavs are locked into the 1 seed. He's a guy that is coming off injury, as I've mentioned 3 times now, and he's needed in the playoffs. Like, he is a guy that is still going to play, unlike some of these other bench guys for them. I can't get Craig Porter out of my mind because of that. I think he's a guy that is a solid fantasy producer. He's kind of like the New Orleans guys, where all of a sudden, if you give him a couple more minutes here, he starts to really stand out. I think I can do that with him. I think that he's a guy that can benefit from Jerome maybe not playing as much as people think. At the flat 3K, he already projects decently. Give me Craig Porter Jr. as my nuke of the night.
All right. So don't hate that. He's somebody who I mentioned that I like a little bit as a lower-owned option as well. By the way, if you guys are using our data and tools to build lineups, we did have a projections update that went live 3 minutes ago, and we had an ownership update that went live 1 minute ago. So I am going to go back to a team that's been a point of a lot of discussion today in the New Orleans Pelicans. And for New Orleans, I'm sticking with somebody who I talked about before because his ownership, I was really curious to see what the update was going to do to his ownership. and it went down. Not in a significant way, but it went down a little bit. Jamal Cain, $3,200. He's now only projected for 13% ownership, Matt. And once again, just going ahead and looking at some of the points per minute fantasy projections, we've got him at 0.82, Keon Brooks 0.82, Jeremiah Robinson-Earl 0.87, Antonio Reeves 0.83. All these guys are so much more popular than Jamal Cain, but it's just because right now we're expecting a little bit more minutes going to those guys. There's no guarantee that has to end up being the case. And if Jamal Cain could walk himself into a couple more minutes, then guess what? You got a guy who has a fraction of the ownership of these other chalk options, but the exact same projection. So Jamal Cain, that is going to be my nuke of the night. I was 2x the field on my last update that I ran on. Now that, I mean, it's not going to move all that much. His ownership has come down a little bit. It probably gets me a couple of extra lineups with him, but it's really easy to be overweight to Jamal Cain.
Yeah, I think your points are very well taken. Just in the sense that, like, the leverage he provides against the other really chalky New Orleans guys also plays in your favor. So I dig it.
Let's talk some more about pay-up options, because we've hit on Giannis. We've talked a little bit about Cat. We've talked about Edwards, particularly on the FanDuel side of things. If we look at our highest overall projected players on the slate here, it's Giannis by a pretty decent margin. We've got him projected for 56.5 fantasy points. Then you got Towns, Trae Young, Cade, Anthony Edwards. They're all in like the mid to upper 40 fantasy point range. Jalen Brunson, John Morant, Tyrese Halliburton, Onyeka Okongwu, all on the lower end of the 40 fantasy point range. Who are the other pay-up options who stand out to you? Because outside of Ant, who's 48% owned, we've got Cat 51% owned. We haven't talked too much about some of these other guys.
Yeah, I think the reason we haven't mentioned them too much is because I don't really love them. There aren't that many to choose from. We talked about Towns a lot. I think that he looks clearly like the best guy. Trae Young, we haven't talked about too much, but he looks good. I've mentioned him in passing when I've talked about Cat. I'll say outside of Giannis, I think those two guys are the two, best, right with Ant. So Ant, Trae Young, and Cat. Like, I think those guys are the reason you don't, force in or have to play Giannis, because, you play some combination of those guys or potentially all three of those guys with value, then you can't fit Giannis. So I get that. My problem is there just really isn't anyone else. Cage, sure, but he does not project well at all. I mean, the guys that are 1,000 less than him project for more fantasy points. So hard for me to get there. Same situation with Halliburton. He's just too expensive. So I think the main three are Cat, Trae, and Ant.
So there was a scenario last night that we talked about on the show about, it didn't end up mattering because the game was a blowout, but Josh and I were discussing about how if you've got the Magic playing the Celtics on paper, you're like, boy, tough matchup for the Magic. But then you look at the Celtics starting lineup last night, and the Celtics starters for the game were Pritchard, Hauser, Cornette, Craig, and Shireman. And it's like, all right, normally the Celtics are a tough matchup, but is this really a tough matchup? And there's somebody who I feel kind of similarly about tonight, Tyrese Halliburton. Yes, he's playing against the Cavs. Yes, because it's a tough matchup on paper. Normally, you'll see that like maybe a little bit of a downgrade to projections because there's like an assumption that it's a difficult matchup, but not with this Cleveland Cavaliers starting lineup. To read it off again, here's who Cleveland is starting. We have a starting lineup for the Cavs of, want to make sure I don't misspeak with any of the guys here. Yeah, Cavs starting lineup, Ty Jerome, Sam Merrill, DeAndre Hunter, Dean Wade, Jared Allen. This is not the normal defense you're getting out of the Cleveland Cavaliers. You don't have Evan Mobley, who's a defensive player of the year candidate. You don't have Darius Garland. You don't have Donovan Mitchell. Not they're the best defenders in the world or anything like that, but they're better defenders than Sam Merrill and Ty Jerome. So nobody's playing Tyrese Halliburton. Like not literally nobody, but he's 5% owned. I think there's more upside than what's being perceived when you consider who he's playing against.
I like that call. That's really getting in the weeds there, and I have no arguments with that. I mean, a lot of people aren't going to think about that, and I think it's definitely worth thinking about because he is too expensive for his current projection. But all of a sudden, that projection is taking the matchup into account, and the matchup is, as you mentioned, far from the same. Like, yeah, even if, Garland isn't the best defender, these guys are on the court a lot together. They've got a lot of defensive cohesiveness. Certainly you take Mobley out, that's going to be a big drop. Mm-hmm. I can get on board with that. Like, as soon as you started talking about it, I kind of knew where you were going to go. It makes a lot of sense to me. It's tough because there's so many point guards I like, but I just think that's going to even lower his ownership. I mean, he's got slate winning upside on a slate like this. I like that call a lot.
Yeah. And, the first thought, if Giannis is ruled out, which, by the way, not saying literally, saying that because we know now that Giannis is playing, but the first consideration we make when we're building our lineups when somebody like Giannis is out is, okay, who benefits from this? We very rarely talk about the other team. And it matters a lot at this time of year. Teams that are in otherwise would be really difficult matchups are playing against the shittiest players imaginable who wouldn't be starters on a bad NBA team. So I like attacking some of these situations, especially when it could lead to getting, decent players at low ownership, like Tyrese Halliburton.
I'll take it even one step farther. I mean, your point's already solid as is, but like Jared Allen, we expect to play a very short run here. So all of a sudden you get Tristan Thompson in the middle. Like, yeah, I'm on board with that.
Absolutely. Let's see if there are any other questions. We've got a couple of them from Discord. We've got Bronx Boy Rob is asking us, who would we play, McDaniels or DeAndre Hunter? I prefer DeAndre Hunter.
Yeah, Hunter here pretty easily.
And then the next question, it is from King Yusuf. He wants to know, any love for Cade in a DraftKings GPP? Matt, Cade, any love for him tonight?
Tough for me to really get on board with Cade just because he doesn't project well. You can't really make the same cases you just made for Tyrese Halliburton. I like Trey, Cat, and Ant more than Cade, and now we just talked about it. I like Halliburton more. So, yeah, no. For me, it's going to be a no on Cade.
I don't hate him or anything like that. If you have him in lineups, it's not the end of the world. I don't have a big Cade stand, though, in terms of being massively over or underweight to the field on him. He's projected for 16% ownership. We still have the Knicks playing some of their starters. It's a game that doesn't really matter for the Knicks, but they still got guys out there, and Tibbs is their coach. They're still probably going to be playing pretty hard. So as far as Cade goes, not one of the pay-ups who's a really high priority for me. If I'm going to be contrarian, I prefer Halliburton, who is a third of the ownership.
I'm with you, and I kind of feel like Halliburton can outscore Cade here a lot of the time, so I'm taking the savings there.
Bando wants to know Tyrese Halliburton or Trae Young. That is going to be Trae Young for me in just a 1v1 situation.
Same. I mean, he projects better, and he's more expensive, so if you have the salary, you play Trae, but I like the idea of getting to Halliburton now. I really do.
Yeah, and if you look at Trae Young versus Tyrese Halliburton, I mean, as much as I talked before about the easier matchup means that Halliburton, it's kind of easy to under project him a little bit, but there's still a 6 fantasy point gap between him and Trae Young. It doesn't mean because the matchup is easier than it appears to be on paper that all of a sudden Tyrese Halliburton should be projected for 10 more fantasy points or something. It's more along the lines of, a little bit more efficiency, things along those lines. So it's still Trae Young over Tyrese Halliburton for me. I have way more exposure to Trae than I do to Tyrese Halliburton.
Yeah, totally. For me, it'd be more where before I would definitely say Trae and whoever versus Halliburton and a guy that's 700 more. That's closer now than it might have been, an hour ago for me.
Yeah. And also, I mean, for me, I want to be clear. It's not like I'm playing 50% of Tyrese Halliburton. I've got 15% of him, but relative to his ownership, it's a pretty decent stand.
Yeah. I mean, the thing about Halliburton, and I mentioned it when I was going, he is expensive for who he is and he doesn't project well. Your points make me like him more, but they don't all of a sudden make me think he's going to outscore Trae Young, to your original point on this question.
Yeah, so just in a 1v1, that's going to be Trae Young over Tyrese Halliburton for me. And then, never mind. That is a NHL update. That was not a question. That was related to the NBA slate. Just uploading my lineups right here, and then I will be set to go. If you guys haven't done yet, like the video, subscribe to the YouTube channel, and don't forget that if you want to sign up for any of the packages that we have here at Stokastic, link down below in the YouTube description box. We also still have our link join offer. So if you guys do want to sign up, maybe you want to try out baseball, right? Maybe you took advantage of the $1 baseball deal. Maybe you didn't. You missed out on it. But if you want 1 month of core access for NBA, which maybe you also want to take advantage of that next week, you could put this in your back pocket and reserve that as a thought in your mind as well. 1 free month of core access for any of our partners that you guys sign up for on screen. By the way, NoVig also is a part of this now. They're not included in the graphic yet, so I'll actually make sure that gets added. But NoVig, our newest partner, they are also part of our link join program. So sign up at any of these books. For each one you sign up for, 1 free month of core access. No more questions here waiting for us. Double check to make sure there was no last second super chats. And there is. Official Chris Presto channel on FanDuel tonight. I really like the Cleveland Indiana game matchup. I think Trent and AJ Green are great plays today. And he just wants to say hi. All right, so we'll finish out by addressing this. Gary Trent, AJ Green, any interest in those guys?
Not as much now with Giannis. And I mean, I think they're in play because game environment, they're cheap, but they don't stand out to me as better values than New Orleans or Cleveland for that matter.
Totally agree. I would have been playing. I don't know about AJ Green. He just doesn't have that much utility for DFS because there was a point. I think we were like 3 months into the season before he made a field goal that wasn't a 3. It was like something egregious along those lines. Gary Trent, I absolutely would have been playing if Giannis was out, but he isn't, so it didn't matter.
C'est la vie.
All right, guys, that brings us to lock. Thank you very much for watching. If you have not done yet, like the video, subscribe to the YouTube channel. I'm not going to be doing a post-lock show over in playback. We've got all the pertinent news at this point, but we're going to leave the stream going. So if you guys do want to watch some of the games in playback, they'll be on screen. So you guys can hang out and sweat some of the games. I'll drop the link into the YouTube chat right now. We've got Knicks Pistons. That'll be a game that's coming up in a second. So you guys could watch that one over in playback through this link right here. All right, guys. Thank you very much for watching. Have a good night. And if you want to go and watch the Knicks game in playback, go click on that link I dropped into the YouTube chat. Good night, guys. Good luck.